you horny and deprived sociopath, and welcome to this review of the amazing digital Circus episode 4. Last time we got Nightmare Core and today it's Corporate Slave Core. Let's dance on minimum wage, chat, because remember, when you're in denial, the river can just get more real. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and very important, comment your thoughts. It's always better to have multiple opinions and I like reading what you all think. With that out of the way, let's just get into it.
Think of a big black man chasing.
This episode starts with Gangle getting a new non-easily breakable mask before Kane appears to get them to a new adventure. And while Kane suggests Resident Evil, Gangle prefers the joy of working in a fast food chain. And Jax is understandably offended. No, cause of all the adventures you could pick, you suggest minimum wage work. Bruh. So they all get to work and it basically plunges to chaos. Ragatha gets drunk, Gangle is losing her marbles, Jax is having a friendly chat with most likely future trauma, while Zubul and Pomni are having the most normal day I've seen them have since the first episode of this show. Oh, and Kinger is being king. At the end of the day, Gangle's at the verge of abstraction when Pomni suddenly suggests to close the building for her, so that she can leave early. Gangle, finally free, throws away her mask, revealing her true self before... ISEKAID? I don't know. In the end, Zubul asks Gangle to join them, she accepts, and the episode stops there. This episode was... uncomfortable. But in a good way. Let me explain. I don't know if it's the atmosphere or how dull everything felt, but this whole fast food section felt real, but not in a sense of identical to reality. I don't think I've ever seen a person made out of Orb's Order before, but just how contradicting this adventure was compared to what we had before. If you forget some of the weird stuff around them, this was just a normal day's work. One thing that I picked out was the lack of background music during the whole adventure section. It felt more real and more isolated. I was bored. Not in the sense of this episode was boring, but more in the sense that I felt like the more I was watching them at Spudsy's, the more I was feeling the boredom of their work. This unbearable routine, even though they were doing that for a day. I don't know if I explained it right. Like I said, it felt uncomfortable, and that's exactly what the episode was trying to convey. I don't really have any negatives to point out, but I still have a lot to say about almost everyone, actually.
Hurt nothing. I've been hurt enough. Packages landing on my head. Tea parties. Dancing lessons.
Okay, this is going to be a kind of throwaways of random things I want to talk about that happened in this episode that has no link with each other. So I'm just gonna go over them one by one with no transition. So let's just get that out of the way. First off, Gamigu and Pomni. In this episode, while serving the customers, one of them appears to be Gamigu, which throws Pomni off guard. Unfortunately, he doesn't seem to have any memories from episode 2. Pomni, on the other hand, awkwardly tries to have some sort of conversation, and maybe have closure on the whole episode 2 event, which I found very bittersweet. After all, he was kind of the first person Pomni really opened up to, even before Ragatha. And forgetting the ship's popularity skyrocketing, some people began theorizing again, about Gamigu's memory to be more precise. Because after Pomni says his name, he seems to be reacting. And when they have their final goodbye when he goes out the restaurant, his reaction is pretty peculiar. Like someone who knows something but is trying to act like they're oblivious. And honestly, I kind of believe it. Even on my first watch, I thought he had a strange behavior. I hope we'll be able to touch on that if it appears to be true. Next thing I want to bring out is Zubul. They're really starting to grow on me. They were the one to hand Gangle her new mask when her older one broke. Again. By Jax. Again. And from the way I see it, I think Zubul understood Gangle's struggle better than anyone. Her mask always breaking, struggling to have a new one and keep it on, and Zubul swapping their body parts in the hope they can find something that fits. I can see why they're the one reaching out to her at the end. Not only to not isolate her, but also because I think Zubul might be the one that understands her better than anyone else in this circus. I also like to see their room that looks like an unorganized mess of pieces and parts, perfectly reflecting their owner's being. Another thing that I couldn't shake is how out of place the characters were compared to the environment. I don't know if I am the only one who felt like it, but the interior of the restaurant felt real, but like too real. So much so that the other characters and even the NPCs felt out of place, like a clash between animation and environment. This added to the uncomfortableness. Also, there's this section when Jax is talking to Zubul about Kane, saying that Kane would never do anything bad to them because it was his nature, and Zubul replying with,
"You really want to find out? The only thing holding Kane back is the fact that he likes us." I wouldn't push it.
I don't know if it's foreshadowing, but I feel like it will bite them in the dust in future episodes. Jax genuinely thinks his actions won't have consequences since this world isn't real. I understand his line of thoughts, honestly. In this world, you don't need to eat, drink, or sleep, and you can't even die. The only thing that can really affect them in any way and that never changed even when they first entered are their minds. And Jax is always just testing the limits, but with this interaction, it makes me think that someday he'll probably go too far. I'm curious to see this. And two other minor things. At one point, Ragatha is being delirious and spits out this.
I miss my horses. Heard nothing. I'm hard enough. Packages landing on my head, tea parties, dancing lessons.
Other than being a Raggedy Ann reference, some people, me included, thought it maybe meant she used to come from a wealthy family, with the horses, the tea parties, and so on. But I'm not really sure. Maybe it's actually just a reference. Let me know what you think. And now that I think about it, I wonder if the characters' appearances in the circus reflects their lives before it. For example, Ragatha may have used to be from a wealthy family where she had to comply with others' decisions to make them happy, and now she's a doll. And Gangle used to force a smile to hide her real feelings, and now her face is a comedy mask. And if that's revealed to be true, that can link to a whole lot of theories. Maybe Pomni is a jester because she used to be a person people didn't take seriously, and maybe Kinger is a king chess piece because... I don't know, maybe he was the CEO of the CNN company or some shit. Y'all can think about it. And there's also this part when Jax comes back to his car. There's this number 001 besides his name, and people theorize that it maybe meant that he was the first one to appear in the circus, which might also explain his bratty attitude. If he's the first one, he saw everyone else come and abstract, which might also explain why he acts like he doesn't care at all. But like I said, let me know what you think.
These hips do lie. Shakira, Shakira.
I'm gonna continue with this because I have some things to say about those two in this episode, so let's get this over with. I want to start with Ragatha because boy do I have some things to say about her. At first, she's just her usual self, being nice, sometimes getting annoyed by Jax, even working pretty normally when they're at Spudsies. And then Ragatha accidentally inhales a truth bomb that also made her drunk. Yeah, because more than just being completely wasted, I firmly believe that she just became brutally honest after being in contact with this sauce. And this is where it's starting to get interesting, because there are various moments where she says something that you wouldn't have thought she would ever say, leaning to who she actually might be as a character. For example, when Pomni goes to see Gamigu, she is mad because she prefers spending time with an NPC instead of them, and at one point she tells Zubel that she is a grunge, and even spits out to Gangle that she's annoying with her happy mask. Something you wouldn't think Ragatha would be saying, right? And then we have the therapy scene with Gangle and Pomni.
Oh, Ragatha. I love her, but after a while it gets kinda hard to tell how genuine she's actually being.
See, I find this interesting because before all of that, we picture Ragatha as this responsible / mature person that kind of tries to act like the glue of the group, but certain moments in previous episode made it clear that her intentions felt kind of forced. Not in the way of she's too pushing, but rather how hard she's trying, almost as if it wasn't that much genuine intentions. Let me explain with an example. When you're trying to help out someone, normally you do it for the other person, without expecting something in return, but sometimes there are people feeling bad about themselves or their lives, so much so that when they are trying to help someone else, they don't do it for this person, but for themselves, to make themselves feel like a good person, someone who makes a good action, to feel like what they are doing is good because this is the right thing to do. And that is exactly what I suspect Ragatha is. I'm not saying she's a bad person, far from that, but like Gangle said, her intentions aren't that genuine. I remember seeing this comment I saw under the episode stating that Jax and Ragatha are implying that she is easier to deal with when she's depressed, which I kind of agree with. Like I said before, Ragatha is trying to help out people for her own satisfaction, like a people pleaser, trying to make sure that nobody hates her because she values how others sees her. When she was trying to help Pomni, she was seeing herself in her, and when she was talking about her, it was mostly about how she refused her help. Because more than anything, she's not just genuinely helping them feel comfortable, she's asking for validation. Because if there is no one to validate her contribution, then what is she here for? I feel like for Ragatha, her worth is through how other people see her. Hence also why she says to Jax that she doesn't want him to hate her, even though she absolutely despises him. She has a certain opinion of everyone. She thinks Zubul is too grumpy, that Gangle is a little annoying, and so on. But with her kind of people-pleaser mindset, she never states it out loud because she doesn't want other people to hate her. Like I said, I'm not saying she's evil or something, just that her intentions aren't as pure as you would think. But that's how I see it. Feel free to disagree in the comments if you think I'm wrong. And then there's also Jax. Oh, and before we dive into his character, let me just... Okay, so in the beginning, he acts like his usual self, an ass. But the more he worked in this restaurant, especially after his... whatever that scene was, the more normal he was. He stopped trying to make things worse, even when he had the opportunity. For example, he didn't even stomp on Ragatha here. I really thought he would, but also when he was talking to Pomni in this scene, which might be the most normal conversation he's had with Pomni, or any other characters really. She wasn't talking to Jax, the troublemaker of this digital world. She was talking to Jax as if they were in the real world. He was even listening to commands, and I think that's because that's who he was before the circus. Just a dude working and then sucking up his pride and ego because he had no choice in the matter, only being able to release the pressure once his day was over. And that also explains his behavior in the circus, because to him, none of what's happening is real. You can't die, you don't need to eat, you don't need to sleep, and no matter what you do, there's no real consequences. So essentially, he's just lashing out, doing everything he wants because he didn't have the luxury to do that before. This is just a big game after all, but that adventure, this normal day work, I think brought back the behavior he once had before the circus just for this one day. But like I said, if you think that's bullshit, feel free to disagree with me. So, you feel like an utter failure and don't know what to do? You have piles and piles of work but push it until the last minute only to realize you can't do it all at once, so you crumble under the pressure? Well, not to worry, because thanks to my genius, my not-so-well creativity, and the collaboration of this OC of mine minus his consent, I bring you this new keychain. Because when your life is in the brink of despair, there's one thing to say: you need therapy. It's available in my Etsy shop, the link is in the description, and that time's over.
Aren't you supposed to be submissive and agreeable?
Alright, let's finally touch the elephant in the room. Overall, this episode was actually a gigantic representation of Gangle's life before the circus and a very sad representation of her deeply buried depression. Let's review the fact for a moment. Throughout the whole show, Gangle felt like the most sensible character, always getting bullied by Jax, her comedy mask breaking all of the time, her decisions getting either ignored or trampled on, not to forget the whole insanity that is her new environment. This circus, where nothing is real, not even her own body. Hence why she wanted something normal to hold on for once. Back in reality, she had dreams, a busy life, and with the circus, everything came crashing down. In the beginning of the episode, her happy mask gets broken again. That's when Zubul gives her another one, a fake mask that is less likely to break unlike her real one. She says that masks makes her feel normal, and after putting it on, her behavior slightly changes. She becomes more assertive, more confident, and the moment they start working at Spudsy's, it's a whole 180. We learned that before the circus, she actually worked as a shift manager, hence why she wanted to become one here. She feels normal, like her before this whole madness. It's not real, but for Gangle, it might as well be. But if only it was that easy. Throughout their adventure, we can see Gangle slowly losing her mind, basically. At one point, we learned she had dreams of becoming a comic artist, only for it to be crushed by reality standards, forcing herself to work for a real job. And at this moment, we start to understand that this whole shift manager act is much more profound than it seems. If you had to sum it up, she hates this job. It's not something she ever wanted to do, but she had no choice. I imagine that even before the circus, she often wore a mask, the mask of a good employee, managing everything with a bright smile, while asking herself if all of this is worth it on the inside. And that's also why she reacts like this whenever someone challenges her authority. She has to do her job, to make sure everything is into place, that she isn't throwing it all away, that her purpose matters in the choices she made. And I feel like the moment she finally starts to break is when she has her conversation with drunk Ragatha. In the episode, she confronted Jax that said he prefers her when she's sad. That hurt her, but in retrospect, it's Jax, so even if it didn't feel right, she could dismiss it. Even with Pomni, after all, she had her first encounter with Gummy Goo since episode 2, so she could also kind of brush it off. But for Ragatha, the one you would think would be on your side, the one labeled as the responsible and mature one, this pillar, to just blatantly tell her that she's annoying with her happy mask, I think it did more damages than everything else in this episode. And it was also after that conversation that Gangle really started to lose it. Her sense of time is getting blurry, she's getting more stressed out than ever, and even just more dull than ever actually. But if she hates it so much, why suggest this, you might ask? Well, like I said before, she became the punching bag of this new world essentially. In the real world, she had dreams taken away. Becoming a shift manager actually put her in the position of power, where her decisions finally mattered. It was a crappy job that made her feel empty, but at least she had some sort of control. She was calling the decisions. She, for once, could manage the situation, unlike with her unrealistic dreams. But after the circus, that tiny sense of control she had left just faded away. She was just going through everything without being able to say anything. She longed for that sense of control again, for this normalcy she once had. Hence why she picked this adventure, no matter how bad it was at the time. And then we have her conversation with Pomni behind the restaurant. Pomni asks her if she's alright and if her comedy mask makes her happy, which isn't the case. After all, it's just a mask. It doesn't have the power to change your own emotions, but it does for the people around you. It just conceals your bad thoughts into a glass jar until at one point it just breaks under the pressure that built up in it. And what's left for everyone to see is this mask, a little cracked, but still covering up everything while your mind is just going crazy behind it. And after Pomni asks her if she has someone to talk to, like Ragatha for example, that's when we hear Gangle question Ragatha's authenticity. Like I said, I think what she said about her being annoying left huge damages that I feel like will never be patched up. And when she goes back to the building, she's almost at her breaking point. Everyone else is leaving, her sense of time is becoming more and more fuzzy, and when she's finally alone, she's left wandering like a ghost in this place that looks like it became bigger and emptier. I'll be honest here, I strongly and wholeheartedly believe that if Pomni didn't show up in this scene, Gangle would have abstracted. Even when I was watching the episode the first time, I genuinely thought that's what was going to happen. Her just staring blankly at nothing while she just stumbled her way out, all of the noise and sound being distorted and kind of blurry. I really thought it was the end for her. After all, this whole day she was just reliving her nightmare from the real world into this one, like she never really escaped it. And that's when Pomni suddenly pops out, telling her that she can handle the closing, that she doesn't have to stay if she wanted. And I don't know if you noticed, but the only real time we had some background music was at this moment, when Pomni told her to go and get some rest. And then we get this scene. Gangle finally comes out of the restaurant. She's finally out, finally free, with no one seeing her. She takes off her happy mask from the beginning, throws it away as she runs, and finally, she smiles. With her sad mask. Not the one she breaks all of the time, or the one she has been wearing since the beginning of this episode. She's smiling with her real mask this time. Her real face. She still has tears, but that's okay. She's at peace. Until I am scared to bring this up, but do you think her jumping in front of the truck was just an accident? Or... Because even when talking to Kane, he says she jumped into incoming traffic. Not fell or tripped, jumped. Like she initiated it consciously. Not gonna lie, if I'm wrong with this line of thoughts, please comment, I really want to be wrong with this. Finally, we have our last scene. Gangle is all alone behind a wall while the others are together. She feels ashamed for what happened at Spudsy's, believing that no one likes her. And that's when our diva Zubul comes in. They come and tell Gangle to join them all, but after everything that happened, Gangle feels like an utter failure. Zubul reassures her that they don't think she's annoying or anything, and that they like being her friend. And that's true. Throughout the whole episode, Zubul never got annoyed at Gangle, even worrying about her. Like I said before, she relates with her struggle, with Gangle not feeling like herself, and Zubul not feeling right with their own body. And it's through this connection that Gangle finally opens up and goes to join the rest of them. Some days after the episode's release, Glitch posted this picture. A drawing made by Gangle picturing her, Pomni, and Zubul, probably showing us Gangle's real first friends in this circus, and her potential recovery. And that's the end of this video. I was really leaning into interpretation this time, so I hope to see a lot of your comments and thoughts this time around. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you around.